Hey there, bet you didn't expect to see me again. It's been over a year since I made a YouTube video. Not because of anything specific, okay, that's a lie, I started playing a lot of Splatoon, but mostly just because I haven't found something interesting enough to focus on for that long since KOTLC, which was on and off work for 10 months. But that all changed last August, when I made a deal with a friend and a former teammate that she would read Vestir if I watched Kamen Rider Geats. This went from trying out a show as an obligation so that my friend would read a Homestuck fan comic, she didn't even make it to page 100, to a full-on hyperfixation. It went from video reviewing 1 season, to 2 seasons, to 5. I became a Kamen Rider fan in basically the blink of an eye, and I have no idea how either. But first, here's some necessary background info on what exactly Kamen Rider is. Put simply, it's a slightly darker Japanese version of Power Rangers. A set of characters transform into suits and become heroes. It's marketed towards kids, mostly young boys, and it sells a shit ton of REUPLOAD toys. I'm reluctant to call it Japanese Power Rangers just because of the existence of Super Sentai, which is much more literally that. In fact, many seasons of Power Rangers were adapted from it, but it's the best comparison I can make. I began watching Geats about a month after making the deal with Cure. A week before starting it, I'd watched a spin-off movie of another season at her request. The movie was called Trio of Deep Sin, a spin-off of Kamen Rider Saber, which aired in 2020 and 2021. Yeah, you can imagine how that show's production went. The movie itself had come out more recently, sometime during 2023. It's what's called a V-cinema, one of the 1 or 2 straight-to-DVD movies that each Rider show gets after its TV run. They range wildly in quality, depending on the budget and time they're given, and this one was astonishingly good and also really terrible. The terrible parts in question that I found were mainly the CGI and the incessant talking down to kids writing that occasionally reared its ugly head. The CGI, while it's really bad and barely even counts as CGI, can be excused with the fact that they had no budget. The childish writing, meanwhile, is sometimes plain obnoxious. There are many flashback sequences that play 3 times with no new additions throughout the movie. Guys, we get that you have a young audience, but reminding them about the movie exclusive cast and their generic backstory every 5 minutes is just a lame way to pad out your runtime. The rest of the movie can also be strange sometimes. The action sequences with weird voiceovers and flashy dance moves were unfamiliar to me and really jarring because of it, contrasting harshly against the darker tone of the movie. With that being said, Trio of Deep Sin is freaking brilliant. It has several weak moments, sure, but behind it all is a beautifully told story about love and trauma with a killer ending that almost made me cry. It was clearly made with immense love and care by people who wanted to tell it. Given an actual budget and amount of time to work on, this movie could have been a masterpiece, which is kind of ridiculous for a low-budget kids movie, but it also sucked at the same time. And this movie is all of the prior knowledge I had about the Kamen Rider franchise as a whole before starting Geats. Before that fateful Saturday when I sat down at the Burger King quote-unquote break table and...
Congratulations! Starting today, you are a Kamen Rider.
Yeah. I know.
Let's start with an overview of this. Kamen Rider Geats is a very strange show. Anyone with eyes can see that it is objectively terrible. It has bad CGI, 2-dimensional characters, and it's very clearly only meant for children. The plot and characters aren't too complicated so that kids are able to keep up. Each episode has a shit ton of toy marketing. The dialogue is nearly Pokemon levels of weirdly stiff at times, and I can tell when I didn't even speak the language they were talking in. The show's only purpose, as far as I am aware, is to be a moneymaker. The budget is far smaller than the income that the toys make, which I'm sure is no fault of the showrunners, but it shows what the main priority is here. And the episodes are cranked out like factory products. There has been 1 season of Kamen Rider, with about 50 episodes, released nearly every year for half a century. Note that seasons is only a technical name, because besides a few exceptions, each quote-unquote season of Kamen Rider has a completely standalone story cast instead of gimmicks. They're really different shows under the same franchise with some shared design philosophies. All of that was to say that, objectively, this show should suck. But it really doesn't. I mean, it sorta does, but at the same time, it has this strange ability to throw me for loops and make me feel for all the characters, the charm that kept me watching till the end. The season Kamen Rider Gates was created with the goal of bringing in new audience targets and keeping Kamen Rider a well-known franchise in Japan. To accomplish this, the focus of the show is a battle royale game similar to Fortnite, Apex Legends, or Squid Game. Okay. The characters play the game and face off to defeat as many plant creatures as possible and save the world, all of them with the goal of being crowned the winner of the Desire Grand Prix and getting a wish granted. Throughout the show, the main characters learn more about the people behind the DGP as fellow Kamen Riders drop like flies. There are a lot of secrets that are gradually revealed and catch you off guard. I would spoil them by going into detail, but it does get wild. How are the wishes granted? How are the contestants chosen? Are the heroes actually fighting to save the world? The conspiracy goes deeper as you go, and at the center of it all is Ace Ukiyo, the titular Kamen Rider Geats. When he introduced himself as that, I actually thought Geats was a type of Kamen Rider, and he was just saying that in a really weird way, but nope, Geats is his superhero name, he's the main character. Despite being the protagonist of the show, Ace doesn't really feel like one for most of the first arc. He's just kind of an asshole. He lies, he cheats, he manipulates everyone around him so he can get yet another consecutive win to grant another seemingly pointless wish. You'll hate him for a good chunk of the show, around 30 episodes or so, but he does finally come down to earth at some point. He's a really solid character after that, and his emotional climaxes are worth it in the end, but you can never get back those 30 episodes of pain. Keiwa Sakurai, on the other hand, leads you to believe that he is the protagonist, until a plot twist at the end of Arc 1, which makes you reevaluate your whole view on the story. Besides that arc, he's underwhelmingly basic, and it pisses me off. Like, he's supposed to be, I guess, but I only started to warm up to him in the last few episodes of the entire season. He isn't nearly compelling enough as a character. Neon, however, is the complete opposite, and yeah, I didn't expect the female damsel in distress to be a good character either, but here we are. She's introduced as this rich streamer girl who gets saved by Ace while falling helplessly off a building, and then she becomes an actual character by getting picked for the Desire Grand Prix, but we found out that her wish is to get fucking married. Come on. At least the show took basic desires like get married and crush all Kamen Riders and turned them into complex motivations with reasons behind them. But she goes from that rough start to becoming probably my favorite character in the whole show for reasons I'll spoil later. And also she's very gay. And with that segue, we bring ourselves to the last main writer, Michinaga Azuma, who I am by far the most opinionated on. He begins as a typical tough guy character until his first centric episode, which made me fall head over heels for him. And after that, there is barely any more development until the last two arcs. And it sucks, because they could have done so much more with his story, especially when he... But no, he barely changes for that entire arc, and it pisses me off. The plot of the show is a whole topic in itself. It's paced well, and no parts dragged too much besides Arc 2. It kept me on my toes with how many twists were pulled. No matter how easy it seemed, I was barely ever able to predict what would actually happen next. And I tried. I was ready to point at it for the parts about the show I disliked, because the plot isn't that good on paper, but I couldn't find any flaws to talk about, surprisingly enough. Turns out the characters are the worst part for me. The thing about Geats' characters is that they're so close to being phenomenal, but they all end up just too bland for me to not be emotionally invested. There are a couple of surprise exceptions, but they're only for a bit of the show. I love Buffa, but I was only really excited about him for a third of the run. The rest of it, he kinda just stood there. The effects are god-awful. Like, I get that they had no budget, but this is actively distracting me from enjoying the show. There are like 2 episodes where it isn't as bad, but even then I couldn't tell at first. Note from Future Gus for reading this off the script. I'm editing this 4 months after writing what I've been saying, and I was really harsh on this aspect of the show. Or maybe I'd just gotten used to it, probably that. Either way, rewatching some of Geats, the effects don't bother me as much. I also remember there being a stark difference between the effects when I watched a bit of Revice with Cure and another friend, and when I watched Build a day or 2 after I finished Geats. So it's probably a problem that's the worst in this specific season. The quality of the music is similar to this. The opening credits song is a banger, but the background music often just makes this show worse. They have like 5 tracks that play for most of the season, and all of it is usually too over the top or not serious enough to fit the scene. You have to learn to tune it out for it to not hamper your enjoyment. Another note from Future Guster, my opinion on this has not changed. I watched the Tokusatsu premiere of this season yesterday at the time of writing, which, by the way, Geats is now one of the few seasons to have an official English release with captions. Go watch it on shout.tv if you live in the US or Canada. Anyway, the OST is still pretty dumb and the worst out of the 5 seasons I'm reviewing for this video by far. You know that scene I showed earlier? How dramatic and foreboding it was? Yeah, this is the original audio. It just makes the scene objectively worse in every possible way. With that though, I think I've covered enough that I can without getting to spoiler territory. If you are at all interested in watching the show with the cool gun fox man, please click away and watch it on Tokusatsu's website or tubi.tv, I think. If you don't live in the US or Canada, then this show is best watched spoiler-free, and I don't want to ruin that for you. I'll be going over the whole of Geats along with the next 4 writer shows that I watched. Yes, I watched more of them. Even though it was pretty rough at first, the franchise took hold of me somehow. It's a neat little niche of media. I would genuinely recommend watching a Kamen Rider season. Okay, now are you ready? Let's review all 5 of these things, discovering exactly what the franchise is like, how I became a fan, and how to look past the flaws to discover incredible shows. The seasons are about 50 episodes each. Yeah, I'm scared to find out how long this video is going to be. Kamen Rider Geats begins with the clip I showed earlier, very ominous, and then introduces us to the normal life of one Keiwa Sakurai. This guy is very average and always thinks of others. He goes to a job interview, and when he's asked what his goal is, he says world peace. He does not get the job. This either makes Keiwa seem naive, or the interviewer's overly cynical, depending on your own point of view. There's a delicate balance struck between those 2 ideals, one which the characters and viewers will shift between for the whole season. Are your dreams really that impossible, or is the system rigged against you? Can you resist a higher power and win? Yeah, it's about capitalism. Get ready for that section of the video, it's going to be long. After bombing the interview, Keiwa goes out to lunch with his sister Sarah, who's watching some rich streamer girl do, things. This is not what streamers do. Why is she... okay. Keiwa shares my exact thoughts on this woman. And now Keiwa and Sarah are being attacked by plant monsters. Okay. Keiwa books it out of there like he's already a trained fighter, only to find a massive thing above the city and more monsters in the streets. The world is ending. Eventually, he finds Neon along with 2 Kamen Riders. You can tell which one isn't going to make it through the episode alive because his armor looks like crap. They freely go about their business of defeating monsters for points, but don't bother telling Keiwa and Neon what the hell is going on. Their only focus is on winning the desired Grand Prix, and that means killing enemies and saving civilians. This is all alien, not only to the duo, but it was to me as well. It felt foreign and scary, and like the characters that I had been taking the perspective of for most of the episode were completely powerless. This might have been because, well, it was my first time watching a Rider show, but it's a weird feeling regardless. The realization that the characters I'm rooting for aren't important in this narrative. There is now a giant boss monster which, shock, kills the dude with the crappy suit. The other Kamen Rider, Michinaka Azuma, aka Kamen Rider Buffa, is morbidly excited about this. 3 points, hooray! Then part of the building the characters stand on collapses and oh wow, Neon is falling, what a creative... Okay, this is a new character. Just when Neon is about to fall to her powerless doom, Ace Ukyo The anti-hero star of the game swoops in and catches her. Keiwa, who we'd believed to be the protagonist, had nothing to do with it. He reached out and tried his best, but he's just an ordinary human. The world is ending. He's just caught in the midst of it. The world is ending and you can't save it. We're now fully shown Kamen Rider Gates the character. Ace, despite being a complete jerk at this point, is technically the main character of the show, which I didn't get at the time. I thought it was Keiwa, even though Kamen Rider Gates is the title. Ace makes a comment about how Keiwa and Neon look like they're dating, which they aren't. The instant I said this, I was filled with dread about it being foreshadowing for Neon being Keiwa's love interest, but nope, this is never revisited. Kamen Rider Build also does this as a recurring joke, so I guess it's just a cultural thing, or a Kamen Rider thing, because they have like a ton of gay people. It's very refreshing regardless. Neon and Keiwa say the world's ending, but Ace says there's a chance for another try, alluding to the DGP's cyclical nature. Then he goes and kills the boss, very badass. Ace Ukiyo is crowned the winner of the Desire Grand Prix, Michinaga is sent to Matrix Hell, and the world is formed anew. Like nothing happened, right? Well, Keiwa wakes up in his apartment where he lives with his sister. His memory of the DGP quickly fades into a forgotten dream. He goes back to the restaurant he ate at yesterday, where he's visited by the lady from the opening scene, whose name is Tsumori. There we go. And invited to participate in the Desire Grand Prix. There's a montage of other people being presented with similar packages, including Neon and Michinaga. Back at home, Keiwa touches the little plastic green thing he got and the memories instantly flood back. Forced trauma flashbacks without his consent. Hooray! And that's where episode 1 ends. This episode is obviously an important foundation for the whole show, and especially the first arc. It sets the tone and core concept pretty well. It's a game, and people die and the world ends, but it felt like I didn't get to know the characters well enough to remember them, and instead I just got toys thrown in my face. For the first half of the show, I was constantly telling myself I need to rewatch the pilot, because for some reason it also shows 20 different things to you like one time and expects you to remember them. Like, I didn't even register the fact that Mission Failed and Retired were two completely different things, and then it became plot relevant. Okay, so I wrote a summary of Geats, but it took way too many weeks of pure effort to write before I even finished it, so here's as quick as I can make it. I am not putting myself through that again. Arc 1, Encounter. It's a death game where the winner gets a wish granted, but they're also fighting the definitely not artificial Jamato to save the world. Keiwa seems like the protagonist for most of the arc until he's suddenly retired because he injured himself really badly and then moronically decided it was a good idea to keep fighting. The lady from the intro scene of episode 1 is Tsumori, who's the game's guide and acts as a source of help and instruction. She's mildly important later. We're also introduced to side characters that only appear in this arc, and nobody said about that. These characters include this guy, who dies in episode 1 and serves as motivation for Keiwa and nothing else. This guy, who seems like a great guy until you find out a couple episodes in that he's actually the owner of an illegal casino who is cheating at the game. Also, his writer name is Mary for some reason. Can someone explain that? And last but certainly not least, this dude, a high schooler who became a misanthrope because he broke his leg one time. It's stupid. It's so stupid. Ace wins the game again with the power of good parenting and is that on the Mori ref? Arc 2 Conspiracy. They're playing the game again. The game master, because that's a real person, is pissed off at Ace for getting too close to breaking the rules, so he tries to kick Ace out of the game, and when that doesn't work, he tries to kill him. Ace tells some people that he keeps making weird wishes because he's trying to find his mom, and the DGP keeps trying to prevent him from doing that. Also, Neon's dad and his company apparently have been sponsoring the DGP. Okay, there is exactly one character introduced in this arc who lasts more than 2 episodes. Punk Jack's great and all, but also, come on, it's one freaking character, what the heck? In the end, the game master is sent to purgatory by his boss, and the game ends with no winner. Tsumori reveals that the DGP is actually a reality show, which does explain a lot. Oh yeah, also Michinaga fucking dies. Arc 3 Divergence. It's Among Us. They just play Among Us. We're introduced to more characters instead of stockholders, I mean supporters that back each of the main 4 characters. Man, this Sparrow guy sucks. I really hope we don't have to see him again. Also, there's a sports lady. She plays women's sports. The DGP management and supporters are actually from the distant future. Okay, Michi predictably isn't dead, and now he's teaming with the bad guys to take over the Desire Grand Prix. They accomplish this by the end because the replacement that the producers got for the old Game Master is an absolute moron. Arc 4 Lamentation. The Yamato run a reverse DGP. The Sparrow guy is back. I cannot believe this. Why did they bring him back? He's such a jerk! Ace is pissed at the producer because he found out that they imprisoned his mom to grant wishes. While fighting the producer, a power-up descends from the Little Heavens, and it turns out that Ace is 2,000 years old, actually. I guess that's a thing now. During the Yamato Grand Prix, there's an episode where they play a Sengoku game. This is particularly interesting because of the cultural connotations it has. The Sengoku period was a feudal area of Japan that started about the 1300s and was a time where the shogun couldn't keep power with other lords of the state because they were too busy fighting each other. That's just a theory. A Kamen Rider theory. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Neon was created by the goddess's power, which she has an existential crisis over. Michinaga wins the Yamato Grand Prix. Ace, Keiwa, and the producer all freaking die! Oh, what? Oh, wait. Yeah, they come back next episode. Arc 5, Yearning. Michi gets the power to destroy Kamen Riders just like he always wanted, but he's only destroying their belts? Who would have guessed that the Edgelord just wanted to save them this whole time? I thought he was a one-sided character, but apparently he isn't. Tsumori wishes Ace back into existence because she did that. I'm sure there are no further implications behind that happening. Ace gets god powers a few episodes later and stops the DGP from leaving the time period behind barren. Arc 6 Genesis. The wiki calls it creation, but I like the name Genesis better because that's what my subs use and the Bible jokes are funny to do. The DGP guys dipped out, so Ace asks Michi and Keiwa to help clean up the remaining Yamato, but then, oh my god, why is he here? Keiwa's sister dies, so Keiwa has a villain arc while being manipulated by his frog supporter man. He also accidentally becomes a game leader. It's not very plot relevant, I just think it's funny. Like, how do you do that? You become a gang leader on accident. The DGP tries to stop Ace and makes an evil Tsumori who has a bunch of god motifs and shoots Ace in the head in the last episode. But Ace becomes god in return, and the day is saved. Hooray! Okay, that was a vast oversimplification of the plot. I skipped over most of the stockholders, Neon's family, the stockholders, Ace X Michi, the stockholders. Let's break the show down in a different way now. But before I can properly talk about anything else, I need to explain my main problem with the show, which is its characters. For the majority of my viewing, I was not invested in any of Geats' characters. Michinaga and Neon had plenty of moments, but those didn't last long enough, and eventually they would just stagnate again. The characters are only allowed to be human when the plot wills them to. If they don't need to be human for the plot's sake, then they aren't. Keiwa is the biggest example of this in my mind, having not evoked any emotions for me excluding the very beginning and very end. He is designated as the secondary writer, the second most important character in the show, but most of the time he just felt like a block of nothing. It doesn't help that in Arc 3 he wildly changed his personalities and roles from average protagonist who fights for the greater good to comic relief who was incredibly wimpy. It's baffling. Ace is just there most of the time. He's an asshole at the start and I hated him. Once he becomes less overpowered and rude, he usually does cool stuff and that's the extent of it. Except for Arc 5's finale, that was a banger. These two are prime examples, but far from the only out there. The feeling applies to most of Geats' cast, and I have two theories for why. Firstly, the DGP itself acts as a plot device with the one wish worth risking your life for thing. This allows the writers to be very flat and have one personality trait that they talk about all the time. These wishes are expanded on eventually, but it's very slow and a lot more could have been done. But this doesn't explain why other characters that aren't in the DGP have this problem. The supporters are great examples of it, which makes me think it's something else. And where did I find this something else? With Catboy Keiwa. After finishing Geats, I watched a short called the Hyper Battle DVD. Each Kamen Rider season includes one with their DVD set, and from what I can gather, they're just silly, dubiously canned videos that come as extras for buying something. It's fun little bonus content with a Ryuki crossover. Ryuki was a season that aired in 2002 and had a plot similar to Geats's. So if this video, not even as long as one episode, doesn't matter, then why do I want it to be part of the main show this badly? Besides the fact that it would mean Michinaga canonically has gay sex fantasies about Ace. And it clicked while I watched the Hyper Battle video. No wonder I feel so much more for these characters now. They never got to just exist and be themselves like this. There are a few delightful exceptions to this in Geats. One scene where Ace and Neon go shopping together, another where some characters eat at a food court. Both are just the cast talking, rehashing their experiences and showing how they feel. And still, I didn't want them to end when they were both cut short, the former by a more plot-relevant conversation topic, the latter by some characters suddenly becoming inanimate objects. Yeah, that's the thing that happens in one episode. I just wish for more moments like that. It doesn't have to be as silly as the Hyper Battle video, though Geats has plenty of lighthearted moments. But I wish I could have seen Keiwa slipping on a banana peel and complaining about inconsistent scheduling, Ace voicing his regrets about his excessively long title, or Michi making a scary face while dancing and ranting about the writer name he was given. It's those little bits of personality, not the grand motives, that make me love a character. And Geats is missing that. That's probably why I didn't like it as much as the other seasons I've watched since then. Plot is important, action doesn't make the show, but characters are most crucial in any piece of media to me. But don't worry, the other 4 seasons in the video don't have this problem whatsoever. Anyway, I want to talk about Neon a little more. She's my favorite character in the show. In fact, she's the only one who feels human most of the time, which is probably part misogyny and part this show being way too plot-driven for its own good. And it's funny because I thought she would be terrible. I fell in love with this woman with her first dedicated episode. By episode 3 or 4, she already has layers and dimensions that make her feel compelling. She goes from wanting an emotional replacement for her abusive parents, to having someone sacrifice themselves for her, to having an existential crisis, to realizing her friends are the companions she's been craving all along, to learning how to be independent, to teaming up with her father that abused her. Compare that to like Keiwa, and the difference is mind-blowing. Props to Neon's actor for playing her so well, and all of the actors in Geats in fact. Ryuga Sato went on an extreme weight loss diet to get the look for Keiwa's villain arc. If that isn't dedication, I don't know what is. Also, Daichi sucks. He was a terrible person and then he took a single episode to become completely redeemed. Fuck that guy. Anyway, now we can talk about other stuff. Independent of the characters, the plot of the show is solid. It's genuinely intriguing, and I wanted to see it through to the end. I don't have much more to say on it, probably because I finished Geats like 2 months ago at the time of writing, but yeah, I like it. It's pretty well paced. The 2nd and 5th arcs drag a bit, but not painfully so. And I'll talk about the suits. At first I thought it was a dumb idea to do that because, like, they're plastic suits that sell toys, but you look at them a lot and they are the main gimmick of any Kamen Rider show, so here goes nothing. I don't like Tycoon. The green is shitty and gross looking. His final form goes hard though, that's all. Geats is pretty good. I didn't like it that much at first, but now I appreciate that it's supposed to be cool and edgy, and it does do that pretty well. Buff has grown on me. The edginess didn't appeal to me, but now I really like how many details his suit has, like the leather tassels. It's probably my favorite of the bunch. Nago's good as well. The colors on our main beat form mesh together well. Okay, I'm done. I'm sure there are things I'm forgetting, but that's all I have to say about Geats for now. After finishing Geats and being happy with the ending, Hyor gave me another show to watch, Kamen Rider Build. The only thing I knew about it is that she considered it to be the best season of Rider, but like that means nothing when it's in her top 2 seasons with Geats, which I thought was just okay. If Geats really was just that good, surely there's not much else Kamen Rider has to offer. Surely Kyor's enjoyment of the series is overblown and it's all mid at best. Boy, was I proven wrong on that. Unfortunately, I was in VC with Kyor for the first 3 episodes of Build, so these reactions are a loss of time, sorry. Build begins with someone recalling a horrible tragedy. 10 years ago, a mysterious box on Mars caused a giant wall called Skywall to suddenly appear and split Japan into 3 parts, sending the country into political and economic turmoil. The person talking is Gentoku Himuro, a government official speaking to a reporter named Sawa. Gentoku is the son of the Prime Minister of Toto, one of the 3 countries that formed after the aforementioned Skywall tragedy. We're then introduced to our protagonist, Sento Kiryu. He's a genius and slightly cocky amnesiac physicist who moonlights as the Kamen Rider Build, working to protect people and fight against the monsters called... They're called Smash. They're called Smash. I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore. These, monsters are actually people that have been experimented on and need to be defeated to change back to normal. We later find out that a mysterious organization called Faust is responsible for them. The episode then cuts to a prison escape. Sento sees it in the news afterward, finding out that the escapee is a murder convict named Ryuga Banjo. Sento's justice alarm goes off, so he rushes there to apprehend him. I switch between calling him Banjo and Ryuga throughout the video, so just know that he's the same person and I'm just indecisive. When Sento arrives though, Banjo tries to fight him. They both hold their own until Sento whips out a bottle and knocks him the f*** over. Banjo says that he didn't kill anyone and that if he went back, he would just be experimented on again. Experimented on? By whom? Well, it seems to have been the same organization that Sento faintly remembers being subject to experiments by as well. It's Faust, the creator of the monsters. Seems like these 2 men's past and futures are more closely intertwined than they ever would have guessed. A monster appears on the scene, jump-starting the first true action sequence of the show. Can I just say that Build's base rabbit tank design is awesome? Okay, good. Also, I fell in love with Ryuga the moment he said this line. But I didn't realize that he said it in full seriousness until I rewatched the episode, which only makes it funnier. Kamen Rider Build beats up the monster and wins with the power of science. There's also a bike chase scene and stuff. Taking pity on Banjo, he decides to make himself a wanted fugitive and take him home to the secret basement of a cafe owned by a girl named Misora and her dad. With the first episode out of the way, I need to say that this was instantly 5 times higher quality than Geats and I could tell. The CGI is actually better here, for some reason, even though Geats aired 5 years after Build. The biggest difference was mostly the writing quality though, like these characters actually had original things to say, and they interact with each other in unique ways. The tone is much lighter. Geats had a few odd, silly moments that were sometimes jarring, but clearly just trying to emulate the typical Kamen Rider comedy style that Build actually does well. In Build, the comedic scenes happen much more frequently and serve as nice breaks from the darker stuff that gets us more attached to the characters. Still kind of jarring, but by now I've mostly gained an immunity to the weird tonal shifts. Build's arcs are less defined than Geats, but there are 3 identifiable sections: fighting Faust, the Civil War, and facing Evolt. Each of these parts have a distinct plotline, villains, and style. Personally, the second part is my least favorite, but also I'm a die-hard Banjo fan, and he gets next to nothing in terms of development in that arc, so I'm a little biased. This season gets worse the longer I sit on it, but only because I was absolutely obsessed while watching it. I watched 20 episodes in a week, somehow dropped the show for a month, I don't know how, and then watched the remaining 29 episodes over less than 5 days. The characters make you go through your whole range of emotions. The comedy is surprisingly funny. The action sequences are gorgeous. The plot has you holding your breath until the very end. I want to give a special shout out to the 2 leads and their actors, Atsuhiro Inukai and Eiji Akaso. I have so much to say about these 2, holy shit. This show is absolutely carried by the talent of its leads, the dynamics between the characters, the amazing suit designs, and the twisting plot. They all mesh together to create a show with great drives, serious topics, and a character I might just be obsessed with. This is my favorite Rider season that I've watched. That could change later, who knows, but I absolutely adore it. This isn't exactly an unpopular opinion. Ask any other Rider fan and they'll probably say it's great too. It's one of the most highly esteemed seasons overall, and it deserves it. Kyor tends to have more, controversial opinions in general. I cannot emphasize how much Build made me fall in love with it and the Kamen Rider franchise as a whole. Everything about it is beautiful. It's a show I most often recommend to people who want to get into Kamen Rider because it was what made me really enjoy the shows and want more of them. Despite what I said a little while ago, Build is more of a drama than most of their seasons. It's dark and edgy all the time like Geats, but there is also zero breaks from the plot. Monster of the Week? Yeah, no, episode 1 is one of the only ones where they aren't extremely relevant to the plot. Pretty much all of them will appear later. For the first bit of the show, they are what drives the plot forward with what happens to them and what they reveal. And it only takes 10 or 15 episodes for them to become irrelevant, and most of the fight scenes to be rider-on-rider combat. Build pulls no punches with its plot. There are no episodes with crossovers or silly monster gimmicks. I'm glad there are dedicated lighthearted scenes in most episodes because they are, again, a necessary break from what's going on. It's full-on plot from the start and it never stops, but the drama is much more tasteful compared to Geats. All of that was to say, the only reason I don't 100% recommend Build to everyone wanting to get into Kamen Rider is because it's totally different from a lot of other Rider shows. I can't speak on Showa era Rider or Heisei Phase 1, but most of Heisei 2, which is the era that Build is from, and Reiwa is a lot more episodic, and it will probably be jarring to go from Build or Gaim to O's or Xaid. It sure was for me. It's hard to talk about the show much more without spoiling it, so I can't say anything past this. Just know that Build is amazing, you should watch it, and the leads are gay as fuck. This is the last spoiler warning. Go watch the show. You have 5 seconds. Okay, the first arc centers around the Faust organization and the villain Night Rogue. Sento tries to regain his memories so he can feel like something more than a weapon, while also fighting for love and peace, only to discover that he wasn't exactly the greatest person in the past. Ryuga tries to fight for something bigger than himself, while also attempting to clear his name and avenge his girlfriend, who died in episode 2. Yeah, stuff got real that soon, I wasn't kidding. In episode 11, this builds up to him becoming his own Kamen Rider Cross. In the second arc, a civil war starts, leaving Sento and Banjou no choice but to fight with the government that was wrongfully hunting them down just a few episodes ago. The characters evolve and grow as they face higher and higher stakes. Sento risks himself to try and save Banjou, and Banjou tries to sacrifice himself to protect his country, only to find himself going in far too deep. The arc introduces Kamasumi Sawatari, the third rider. He's edgy, he watches all of his friends die, and he simps for Misora. It also introduces us to Gentuko Himuro. He was a main villain in Arc 1, but has now returned as a good guy through a lengthy redemption arc. He's edgy as well, and still has an evil goatee, which is really, jarring. The third arc is about facing Evolt, that alien supervillain who's been waiting in the background for the whole show. The cast tries and stops him from destroying the world, and they end up changing in ways that they never would have thought possible. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the characters. Sento, the self-proclaimed main character, and the actual main character, is a joy to watch. At first, he's the most knowledgeable person in the room all the time. He does his job flawlessly, and it's always for the same reason, love and peace. Beneath the autism and heroism, though, he has a burning desire to feel human and whole again, to find out who he used to be, and to feel like he matters to others. In one episode, Sento's finally found the Faust base and sees Evolt, then known as Bloodstalk, who he knows was responsible for experimenting on him. Enraged, he beats the ever-loving shit out of Stalk and says this. What a sudden gut punch of a line, holy crap! Also, when I realized that Sento wholly believed in Banjou from the point where he made the dragon buddy, I about dissolved on the spot. In the second arc, again, he risks lives to save Banjou from being consumed by violence. There's a montage that plays of the two together. It really shows how much Sento thinks of him and how close the two are. Totally heterosexual couple, I mean, boyfriends, I mean duo, yep. When asked to not fight against invaders, Sento was extremely adamant about not being a tool for war. He only budges once he realized that it is actually for self-defense. He sticks to his morals no matter what. And then episode 21, whoa! There isn't anything I can say that hasn't been said already by other people. Just imagine what this man feels like. You tried to save your friend from destroying himself, but when you wake up, you're the one who's done the destroying. How are you supposed to cope with that? You don't. You can't without others to help you. It's hard to move forward when there's no one to tell you that you can move forward and that it's okay to do so. The world isn't ending. You can still save yourself. You don't have to suffer alone. No, we're not on that show yet. It just ties in well. We're not on that show either. Or that one. Man, Yates, how come you're the only season in the video that doesn't profoundly touch on this theme? Pick up the slack. Anyway, there isn't much growth to speak about during Mobius Double Battleground, though it is interesting to see the Sawa Spy Part 2, to see him catch on to that quickly and team up, knowing that he can still trust her. And then the third arc. Sento finds out that banjou isn't human, and even though he's blunt about it and should be suspicious, he doesn't think anything needs to change. Banjou was always not human. The amount of faith that these two have in each other, oh my god. And then Sento is possessed by Evolt. Can I just say that Atsuhiro Nakai was clearly having a blast in these episodes? Okay. Then he's unpossessed, but he's not the same. He can only remember being the demon scientist, his former self, Takumi Katsuragi. Oh my god, how am I supposed to write about this part? Takumi is a stark contrast against Sento's optimistic, warm demeanor. He doesn't have Sento's memories. They're separate people, unable to fuse together because of how different they are. They never fuse together. They don't share memories for the entire show. They're always apart. I don't know a good analogy for this dynamic. It's not something you'd expect from a memory loss plotline, and definitely nothing I've ever seen before. Takumi has the same love for science, and he uses that to develop a new item for fighting Evolt, but he seems so much more detached from everything. He doesn't know Misore or Kazumi or Sawa. He didn't live with Evolt for a year unknowingly. The only thing he knows about banjou is that he has Evolt's genes and that he tried to kill banjou. Takumi isn't Sento. He doesn't fight for love and peace, just his own curiosity and faint moral obligation, which is why he can't use the final form. Desperate and beaten down, Takumi reaches out and... From there, Takumi lives inside Sento's head as a separate being. They talk sometimes, but he's mostly just chilling there as a memory. Welcome to White Space, you have lived here for as long as you can. Sometimes he gives advice, sometimes he gives cynical remarks. Nevertheless, very cool character. And the season finale, yeah, it's pretty damn great. I don't know. I'll talk more about the ending later, but man, he risked everything to save Ryuga. And now on to the man himself. Hands down my favorite character in the show. He may pale in comparison to some from the next season I'll be talking about, but my god does his actor knock it out of the park. He's a goofy musclehead that also has so much raw emotion with him, and he's lost everything. His parents, his girlfriend, his humanity. He's humbled by Sento and argues with him until he learns to fight alongside him. He earns his power. He's selfish. He gives into a lust for violence. He's a sucker for protein foods. He is selfless, he's forgetful, he's the comic relief. This is why I love Ryuga Banjo. I'm not a fan of OP characters, no wonder I dislike Dace, but even though Banjo gets an OP power-up with glowing red eyes and stuff, it doesn't hamper his character arc, it only strengthens it. That power-up was created when he got blasted with villain energy after getting up to save Sento despite the odds. It's a huge character beat and a ridiculously cool scene, like, so cool. And then after the fact, he has an existential crisis where he ignores his responsibilities and ends up to cope. He's possessed by Evolt, and when he's dispossessed and discovers that he's finally human again, but can't transform, he tells Gentoku to make him a writer again, no matter the cost. Now that's character development. I will totally write a fanfic about that episode someday. And now for the ending. It took weeks to get over this. There was something that pulled at me every time I thought about it, and it took a while to pin down, but I think I know what it is, finally. Sento wakes up in the world that he created, that they created, that his friends sacrificed themselves for, and he's alone. Everyone has forgotten him. Takumi leaves him. Even Ryuga doesn't recognize him. He shouldn't exist. Sento Kiryu does not exist in this world where Takumi Katsuragi was never memory raped and experimented on, and that's the only reason why he can remember. He was the one who saved the world, yet he's condemned to live on as an onlooker, with no one to be with him. He's a spectator, almost a ghost. But then his banjo finds him. His banjo remembers. And everything is okay. Neither of them should exist. Evolt changed their DNA, quite literally, in ways that they despised and wanted to get rid of. Ways that made them feel less than human. But their curses are the only reason they can live on, and now they have each other as living testament to their existence. They don't belong here, but it's okay. They're happy. Because they have each other, and that's enough. My favorite heterosexual guys there. Beyond the shipping, though, this ending has something that I can't really put into words. Something about finding happiness after endless trauma and loneliness. Not belonging and still having someone to be with. I'm not exactly sure what it is even after that whole summary, but it's something powerful that only makes the show more worth watching. Okay, I haven't mentioned this and I should have put it somewhere else, but I am absolutely obsessed with this moment. At the point where this scene happens, Sento and Banjou already have a very, very strong bond, and then Banjou just randomly says this. In case you're wondering, yes, what he says in Japanese really is that explicit. It took months of learning Japanese to figure it out, but I can say for certain that he asks here, "Do you have feelings for me?" The subs I watched said, "Was that a confession of love?" which I find funnier because he's not asking if Sento has feelings, but only if he's confessing those feelings. But sadly, that's not as close to the actual meeting as far as I can tell. The expressions too, my god. Ryuga seems so genuine and so was excited about it. I wish I could have seen Sento's face. I don't know, I'm just kind of obsessed with it. It's a weirdly self-aware moment in an extremely clear-coded show. Okay, I think that's everything. Maybe I can move on to— oh wait, no, I haven't even talked about the other characters yet. God damn it, I need to speedrun this. Misora is a nice character to have. I remember there was an episode early on that really fleshed her out and made her more than just the girl who makes Sento's power-ups and is grumpy. You see her mellow out over the course of the show as she realizes more and more how much danger her friends are putting themselves in. Kazumine is a really funny character because of how polarized she is. One half is I have experienced the darkest parts of war and watched all my friends die, and the other half is him submitting for Misora's freaking idol persona. It's hilarious to see him switch from edgelord to complete goofball at moments you notice. Of course, both of those traits build up to an absolutely spectacular final festival for his character. Evolt is a very, very good villain. He's absolutely menacing when he needs to be, and he's an interesting concept for sure. Knowing his end goal from the start is probably a big part of why the show felt even better upon rewatch. He's not just randomly throwing the writers a bone and letting them foil Faust's evil plans. He doesn't care about the human politics. He's doing everything for a purpose that none of them have even comprehended that. And I think that's cool. Gentoku is another funny character because he's the main villain and then he disappears for half of the second arc. Then he suddenly becomes a good guy. He's the fourth main kamen writer. Obviously there's a canon explanation, but it's just strange progression and it works. And then he joins the gang and starts wearing gaudy clothes, eventually moving to printed tees? Okay. Why don't his friends like his clothes anyway? We'll get into days, just let him wear what he wants. Let's note, the suit's all slap, banger after banger after banger. Except for Crow's Jelly, which can burn in hell. I love the gay final form, it's absolutely incredible. Well, that's all I have to say about Kamen Rider Build. I wonder how long this section will be, considering I used 12 notebook pages writing about it, including a lengthy summary of nearly the entire plot that I ended up not including in the video. Again. Yeah, I need to avoid doing that for the next season, especially considering what that one is. Speaking of, what is the next season? Well, you're gonna have to wait to find out because that's the end of this video. I am not doing the whole thing. It's gonna be 2 hours long. Are you kidding me? Yeah, so you're gonna have no idea what I watched next until like 2 months from now at this time. Yeah, this video has taken— it's been upwards of a year since I started watching Rider, and oh my god, it's almost done. The first part is almost done, and then I'll have something to look at, but then, until then, oh my gosh. Huge thanks to the people who have helped me that I credited before. Cure, obviously, for introducing me to Rider in the first place. I have eventually overtaken her in hyperfixation intensity. Toko Exenchi, of course, for editing most of the build section. And the android sent by Cyberlife, and Cantrella Rose for providing the voices for the intro to Geats. I could not have created this without you. I am so thankful. Oh my god. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Yeah, guys, I really am sorry about this. So this video was first published on, I think it was July 17th. Oh, crap, I need to, yeah, let's stop recording. Yeah, it was July 9th that it first went up, and it was, like, strangely successful. I didn't expect nearly as much as the attention I got. It got to 5,000 views in a day, and then a couple days later it was up to 6,000, I think like 2 or 3 days after the initial upload. Then it got taken down for copyright for using 9 minutes of footage from the first episodes of Geats. And like, I watch Moon Channel. I understand why it was taken down. I get it, and I'm not super mad at Toei for doing that. But it is also kind of it was really demotivating. Like, before then, like, as soon as the video went up and I saw how much attention it was getting, I was like, holy crap, I want to do more of this as soon as possible. I started editing the next part, which is Gaim, O's, and Xade. I added captions to the original video, and then it was just taken down. and then it went back up a couple days later because I submitted a dispute that got rejected, and then I submitted a longer complaint, or I don't know what it's called, I forget. So the video went back up for a week. Toei had a week to respond and either strike the video or just let it go. And for the full week, it was back up. They waited until the very last minute. Like, I'm pretty sure, like a couple hours before the deadline to strike the video. Which, thanks, I guess. And then the video was struck. Well, I'm just going to edit over some of the footage, right? And re-upload the video. It'll only take a week or two, right? Yeah. So, at that point, I'm not sure if I had started already or not, but around that point, I became a developer for Collective Unconscious, and that was what I was hyperfixating on now. So I had lost any motivation for it, and I got some people in a server I'm in a Discord server, to add like stupid footage to edit over. One person, Toko Exenchi, didn't do it because she doesn't know Geats that well. I don't blame her. Thank you for editing most of the build section. Anyway, and the other person gave me it like at the end of July, and it's for an entire month. I was busy. I had other things. I had stuff that I don't really want to talk about because not really doxing, but just being careful. And then school started. It's school. Oh boy, did it start. So I'm finally editing this. It's been a month and a half, and I'm just really sorry to everyone. I know, like, I have ADHD. The loss of motivation is basically just a death sentence to anything I was working on, but it still doesn't excuse this, and I'm just very sorry about this. So I have another video planned that will take much shorter, much less time to work on, and hopefully you all can look forward to that as an apology. It's about just Gab's insane leak history, because that premiered today. Well, yesterday. And I am really hyped for Gav, and Gav was my first leak season, and I just really think it's funny how that happened. So yeah, again, sorry, I'm so sorry. See you in a bit.